Welcome to Biztech's Asia's hottest startup show, the show where we feature hot startups across Asia, sharing their entrepreneurial journeys and sharing with us their journey towards becoming Asia's tech unicorns. Today, we feature Vistas Media Capital. They are a Singapore-based media investment entity investing into multiple related media businesses, companies, and assets in the capital markets and private equity space. Now, here to tell us more about Vistas Media Capital is Abhayanand Singh, its CEO and co-founder. Now, Abhay, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me here.
Now, Abhay, let's start by giving us an overview of Vistas Media Capital and your business model.
Sure. So we are essentially a Singapore-based media and entertainment company. There are a few businesses that we execute and operate of our own in that space. And there are some wherein we have a business investment interest in, and most of them are majority investment interest. It spreads across different verticals. So we are into production and distribution of content. We're into events. We have an animation and VFX company. We have an OTT platform. We have a gaming vertical. And very recently, we announced the merger of our first SPAC that we had done in August 2020, called Vistas Media Acquisition Company, which announced a merger with Angami, which is like the Spotify of the Middle East. So it's an ecosystem of companies which kind of work with each other, but also work independent of each other.
And how did the idea of Vistas Media Capital come about? Because you are a former investment banker.
Yeah, it's accidental. Of course, I was in banking and I was running a fund. And there was, due to the nature of my work, there was a gap of 1 year that I had to myself when I had to reinstate the fund, get into proper licensing and with the relevant changes that had happened in that space. So I had a little bit of time to think, and I was always passionate about films, ever since my childhood. So I said, this is probably that opportunity for me to try out something in film and content. But I didn't want to just get into it for the passion of it. I started researching and reading more about it, and then realized that there was a huge gap that existed in the content space, particularly in Asia, wherein there's no institutionalized funding for content. And we believe that there is an imminent content boom that is about to happen, but there's lack of institutionalized funding towards that. So we said, why don't we launch something which bridges the gap between the creative world and the financial world? And that's how Vistas Media Capital came in. It wasn't started just by me alone. We had 3 partners, myself and another colleague of mine. We are both ex-bankers. We both live in Singapore. The third partner, Piyush, is based in Mumbai, and he's the creative head between the 3 of us.
So can I ask you then, what were the challenges that you faced setting up a company that you really didn't know a lot about and in essentially something in a new area?
Lots of them. I would say first 3 years were challenging, and there were multiple challenges. I mean, the very fact to convince somebody that, hey, I'm a banker, but I'll make a great film for you is something that doesn't come easy, right? So I had to convince people, that, I'm not just about making films, and there's an inherent media venture that I'm trying to create. Raising money, in spite of the fact that I came from the banking world and the investment banking world, raising money didn't come easy in the initial few years.
Why was that? Because I would think that as an investment banker, raising money would have been the least of your concerns, even though, like you said, in the filmmaking business in Asia, outside of India, a lot of times, like in places like Australia, people basically invest in films as a tax write-off.
Yeah. So, exactly what I believed. I thought, okay, I'm an ex-investment banker. I've run funds. I've been a banker myself. Why don't, it won't be easy for me to raise money. But, sometimes it's about timing in life. I started with a tech venture. It was an OTT platform in India in 2014, 2015. Much before Netflix or Amazon was even announced in India, much before Jio, the biggest telecom operator, had become operational there. At that point in time, when I used to approach venture capitalists, they used to often ask me, will India pay to watch content online? Now, I would believe yes, but there's no case study for me to prove it because, there are no major players till then.
Correct.
So it wasn't easy to convince people. Of course, our business pivoted from that to something different. And like you rightly said, internationally, we know there's a movie that is done by Disney, for example. But the reality is that Disney at the back end is funded by a hedge fund, and that hedge fund is probably funded by high net worth individuals. Investing to content or cinema or films, whatever you call it, has been an alternative asset class in the West for many years now, if not many decades. But in this part of the world, people do invest in yachts, they invest in art, they invest in jewelry, they invest in various things, which would normally constitute the alternative asset class. They haven't been exposed to investing to content, for example. But the reality is that in the last 5 to 6 years, COVID or no COVID, one thing that has gone up significantly is consumption of content. And somewhere somebody is making money. So we wanted investors to participate in that content boom together with us.
Okay. And Abhay, here's one of the key things. What kind of, and I'm very curious because what kind of investors did you finally get to sign up? Because they would have to have significant risk appetite.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So, we're very upfront with the investors. We tell them that this is that portion of your portfolio which is considered risky, right? But there are multiple ways in which we de-risk it. In the film business, we de-risk it with some pre-sales in place from some regular streamers or television production houses or tax credits, as you talked about. These are usually what we've seen success with high net worth individuals, people who made some money in life, and
funding a movie is a dream, isn't it, for some of these people?
Yeah, I mean, there's a different charm and magic to the fact when you're sitting in a dark room in a theater and watching your name on the big screen, it does something to you, and sometimes that fascinates people. Sometimes it is the whole creative aspect. Some people have a creative aspect in them which kind of got subdued because they were in a regular business. This is one opportunity for them to, address that. For some, it is purely investment and diversification. So we've had investors who've come in for various reasons.
Now, could you then tell us then, this is where your role as an investment banker came in. Share us details about why you've taken the SPAC route and then your launch.
Sure. So, like I said, we have a portfolio of 6 to 7 companies into the different value chain of content. And then we thought somewhere in 2020, we wanted to grow inorganically. And we happened to come across this asset class called SPACs, but mind you, we started working on a SPAC somewhere in February, March 2020, when nobody knew about SPACs.
Okay, so just before the wave hit.
Just before the wave hit, right? Now, automatically, there are no films happening because of the COVID environment. So we had a little time to take out for something like this, explore more, understand a little bit more. And then we saw some merit in the, the whole structure of SPACs. So we said, hey, listen, the downside for us is equivalent to us losing money in a movie, but let's go for it. Let's see what is there, as a structure to benefit from. It took us 6 months to actually go public. We raised money in August 2020. Again, it wasn't easy. We had to put in the risk capital. We wanted to raise that capital, and people did not understand SPACs in this part of the world. So it was difficult. But somewhere,
who were your cornerstone investors?
So, it was mostly our proprietary funds, in terms of the company, Vistas Media Capital, investing to it.
Okay.
But we had some of our, investors in the company that separately wanted to co-invest with us in the SPAC in particular. And this time the timing was right, because a week before us, Bill Ackman did a $4 billion SPAC. Suddenly the whole world knew what a SPAC was, right? And ever since, SPAC has seen a euphoria, and there's a lot of SPACs that have happened, a lot of money that has been raised. So the timing was right, and it has helped us, in identifying a great asset in Middle East, which is Angami, which is what we announced in the month of March. The merger is still going on as we speak. But
and that claims to be the Spotify of the Middle East, right?
That's right. And from there on, it has opened doors to various other opportunities in future that we want to pursue in the media entertainment space.
Okay, and what sort of target companies are you looking for in terms of acquiring or merging with your SPAC? Yeah. Any other companies?
So, the first SPAC is already done, right? And we've already announced the merger with Angami. So that is already done.
Okay.
The future SPACs that we do, whenever we do that, there'll always be a natural choice to find something in the media entertainment space, but more to do with media tech than the traditional media. But, if we come across something which is in the TMT space at large, we are also open to that. We're looking at companies that have great corporate governance in, policies in place, companies which are ready, not only from a balance sheet point of view, but also mentally to go public, because, being a public company comes with a lot more responsibilities. And we're looking at companies which have technology that will remain relevant, or a product that will remain relevant for at least, a decade or so. So those are some of the criteria that we look at.
Okay. Abhay, can you paint a picture for us in terms of the current media and entertainment landscape in Asia and how you visualize Vistas Media in this picture?
Yeah. So, I think it's one of the best times that we've seen in the media entertainment space in Asia. Demographics of a large young population helps. The fact that there's a high mobile penetration, for example, that helps. Culturally, for example, it's becoming more and more interesting for the Western world to listen to stories from this part of the world.
Yes.
Consumption of, COVID has only accelerated that. People had more time at the, to themselves, and therefore they were consuming more and more content. So I think it's a great time for somebody to be in the content business or in the media entertainment business, because, we've seen this time and again in scenarios or in eras wherein there have been depression in the financial market, or, globally there have been recessions. Media entertainment is one asset class that has been always resilient in those times, because, cinema is still the cheapest form of entertainment.
And Abhay, one of the things that you mentioned that I think we have to, in terms of the Western markets being more receptive to consuming content out of Asia, I think we've got to thank the Koreans for that, because they've really, from a pop culture and an exporter, net exporter of culture, they've opened the doors for us.
Yes, absolutely. But, while they open the doors and, all credit goes to them, there have been pockets of brilliance from other parts of Asia.
Like India.
Like India, of course, for many years has had Satyajit Ray and many other filmmakers that have made it big in the international film festival circuits, for example. But, it was always confined to a niche audience for the simple reason that we didn't have the OTT platforms. But today with, anybody sitting in US, for example, can get technically access to an Indian content. This is giving opportunity for not only Indian, but a lot of Asian filmmakers to tell new stories, to expose the world to new worlds, for example, that exist in this part of the world. And that's why I think it's, probably the next 10 years is the most exciting time that you can be in media entertainment.
And then on the flip side, what's the attraction and the strategy in the Middle East?
So, Middle East, for some reason, hasn't been at the pace that the kind of money that we've seen coming into Southeast Asia or India, for that matter. If you look at the private equity space, if you look at the venture capital space, right, the kind of deals that have happened for many years now in India or in Southeast Asia, if you compare that to what has happened in Middle East, has been far and few. But that region, Middle East and North Africa, MENA as we call it, has the advantage of, again, a young population, has the advantage of a very high per capita income, for that matter, and is underpenetrated, in a lot of ways. So I think, and that is the reason why Vistas Media Capital decided to set up a presence in UAE. We have two offices, one in Dubai and one in Abu Dhabi, to do a few things. We want to create local content, Arabic content there. I think the next wave of content boom will happen there. We also want to do a media fest there. We've been doing a film festival in Singapore for the last 4 years.
Right.
But we want to replicate a bigger media fest in Dubai. And we're also launching a fund. It's a Cayman fund, but there's an Abu Dhabi structure that will feed into the Cayman fund, which will invest into SPACs and content.
Okay, when you talk about customized content in the Middle East, what type of language, the language aside, what sort of content are you going to be producing?
Local stories. Honestly, we've seen this trend globally that, what runs or what is, easily accepted by an audience is stories from that region, right? In the Arab world, for example, or the Middle East and North Africa world, there have been, many decades of history and stories that would have been created. So we want to find some local stories that cater to the local culture there, with some local characters, relationship the way it is there, so that, it reaches out to a wider audience beyond just Middle East.
Okay, so, and that would include obviously then producing the content for the region,
yeah,
and then syndicating the content out, perhaps in different languages, in English and things like that. Is that the strategy?
Yes, absolutely.
Now, let's look at Vista Media Capital in a different space because you've just launched Fantico, basically an NFT platform for memorabilia for Indian entertainment sector. Tell us about that.
Sure. So what used to happen was that we had various reasons to connect with the creator community. We were either making a film with them, or we're giving an award to them at an award show, or we were inviting them to the festival. And we realized that there was a huge gap that existed in the Indian media entertainment space, wherein it was very difficult for three categories of buyers. There are super fans who want to possess or own something which anyway is connected to the celebrity that they adore.
Yeah.
There's a category of collectors who would like to collect a poster of a classic film from the 1940s or 50s, for example. And investors, today you have a lot of crypto investors and NFT investors, even art investors. There was no platform in the past. Whatever was a collectible item, the price of it was identified in an auction, in a city, in a place by 50, 60 people. What about the people who are sitting outside of, in the same city, for example, but never got access to that auction, right? And therefore, it can unlock a higher value. Now, the time is right because blockchain as a technology allows that to happen. A, because you have an NFT platform, you reach out to a large audience. And secondly, because of the underlying technology, it is very easy to establish the digital ownership of the underlying asset.
Yeah, because it certifies that it's a unique asset and therefore not interchangeable. You can't duplicate, and that the technology gives you that comfort level.
Absolutely. So we've started with India. We have ambitions to go into other countries. MENA is obviously a natural choice for us because we have a presence there. But the response has been phenomenal so far. We've got very unique pieces. Pieces that I, as a cinephile, would have loved to own that we have on the platform. And having said so, these are early days for NFT at large. There's a lot of euphoria right now globally. A lot of things that we hear about today may not probably survive, but we are here for the long term. We believe in creating a venture that is sustainable, and we want that the best and the rarest of products comes out from the media entertainment space and reaches out to its right audience.
Okay, can I ask you, so you said it, the take-up has been very good. It's got to be at two levels, right? It's the creators it's a marketplace essentially. The creators on one hand and the purchasers on the other hand. What sort of adoption have you seen so far that gives you that comfort that it's taking off?
Yeah. So I'll talk first on the supply side, for example, right? In the olden days, or even till recently, when a filmmaker used to make a movie, all the costumes that were worn in the movie, all the props that was there in the movie was either sent to a warehouse, which would incur a cost to him to maintain that, or were disposed of. Suddenly, there's a new revenue stream that comes out to the same filmmaker, wherein he can probably auction them or sell them to fans, collectors, or investors who want to own them, right? So we have received great response, therefore, from the suppliers, because it does not eat into anything that they have. And, it becomes a new way of monetizing the same underlying asset.
Absolutely. So for them, it's marginal revenue essentially that they never thought of before.
Absolutely. On the demand side, at the same time, like I'm sitting in Singapore, and if I want access to a rare film poster, I had nowhere to go. If I want access to a GIF, for example, if I want access to a song that never released in a film while it was shot, for example, right? Access to a book that is out of circulation, these are rare items that I never got access to. And there are many more millions of people like me who never got access to. Today, we are being spoiled for choice. There's so much that, I can get access to. And I think that is what differentiates us as a platform. There's something unique that we've done in this space. A lot of our NFTs are backed by underlying physical assets. And we have seen, various models coming out of NFTs globally. There is physical gratification, there's digital gratification. There's sometimes personal time that is NFT'd in a lot of ways, right? So we realize that these are early days, and we want to have a lot of these NFT that are backed by underlying assets.
Now, Abhay, what is next for Vistas Media Capital? What are the key focus areas you're going to focus on, and what are your plans moving forward?
Yeah. So, we spent last 3-4 years in building the blocks of what Vistas Media Capital is today. I think the next 3 years for us is the convergence story. We have an animation company which will draw some characters. Our gaming company could gamify those characters, and some of the properties would come on Fantico, which are NFT platform, right? So we have these assets and portfolio companies within our own ecosystem, and we want to work on convergence. We are very bullish on gaming. We are very bullish on NFTs in the long term. And of course, some of the other, traditional business is something that continue to be a cash cow for us.
Now, Abhay, any final thoughts before we end this conversation?
Well, I think the only message I want to give probably to entrepreneurs or, creators, for example, or people who are looking to, be part of this community, I think this is the best time, like I mentioned before. There is a content boom, there are various things coming out, various models coming out within the media entertainment space. And the time is now to, benefit from that professionally and personally.
Now, Abhay, thank you very much. It's been a fascinating and enlightening interview.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me here.
Now, we've been speaking to Abhay Singh, CEO and co-founder of Vistas Media Capital on Biztech's Asia's hottest startup show. I'm Brian Fernandez. This video will be on our Facebook and LinkedIn sites as well as our other platforms. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thanks again for tuning in.